Franchising is the most misunderstood and most overlooked form of entrepreneurship. We're here to educate you and help you find the entrepreneur within. Franchising is not all about the French fries.
We find that individuals who are exploring business ownership tend to have a lot of misperceptions and misunderstandings about the franchise industry. So what we want to do is help prospective business owners make confident and educated decisions before moving forward or not moving forward with a business. Welcome to Unpredicted Entrepreneur.
Hi, welcome to episode 84 of Unpredicted Entrepreneur. I'm Roxanne Rapsky, and this is my colleague, Sarah Wasco. We created this podcast to bring you education and information about business ownership and all things franchising. And as you know, we have an array of guests. So today we have prior clients who are now in business. They are co-owners of a business called Next Day Access, Central Dallas and Fort Worth. Dave Rice and Palat Rice are our guests, and we want to thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So kind of a little interesting story about how Dave and I came to work together. Interestingly enough, we went to high school together and we graduated a year apart, connected on Facebook, but just didn't really communicate a whole lot. I knew you lived in Plano, saw some of your posts about the bike trail.
You need to point out that you graduated high school in California. It wasn't even local.
Yes, in California, but we're not going to say the year, okay?
No.
So through circumstances, he ended up being referred to me by somebody I know from a networking group, and you guys had gone to Harvard Business School together, right? So Dave actually showed up at one of my workshops, and there was someone else from our high school in California there. So it was just kind of this really weird and interesting way of coming together. But with that said, Dave was interested and curious about franchising just a little bit. I'm not overly excited about it. So why don't you give us your background and kind of what led you to looking at starting your own business?
Sure. So I had originally been trained as an engineer, a chemical engineer.
With a PhD in chemical engineering, right?
Yeah. Did research and development and invented products at Procter & Gamble for a few years. And then went back to business school and did more strategy work and change management and things like that in different kinds of packaged goods companies. Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, SAB Miller, worked around the world. And after about 25 years, my corporate career was kind of winding down. With COVID, it got sort of disrupted and it didn't really make sense to go back to it at that stage of my life. We've got kids that are getting older and we didn't want to move. And so it seemed like a time to approach maybe starting a business. That's what some of the folks in the networking group advised. And franchising was one way to explore different options.
Well, when we met, I felt like you had the weight of the world on your shoulders. You were the sole provider of your family, kids in private school, providing for a family in Thailand as well, Palat's family, right? So there were a lot of things on your plate. So I could feel the stress and I could feel the discomfort. You made a lot of money in corporate America. And it wasn't easy to walk away from that, I know. So your initial perspective on franchising was not overly positive. So why don't you share that with us and how you kind of were able to work your way through that?
Sure. So, I'd been in soft drinks and beer and things like that. I'd seen different kinds of franchising systems. And what I had seen was that it was a pretty one-sided game. Whether it's an FTD and a franchise like we're talking about or a bottling contract, they're so one-sided. The first time I read one, I don't know why anyone would sign one. You'd have to be nuts.
There's a lot of people that feel that way.
There are.
And yet, people are successful at it. People make a lot of money doing it. And it's a chance to be part of a system that can be a very exciting, I don't like the word ecosystem, but sort of business system that's entrepreneurial and where you can get a lot of support for growth. And so in the end, we found something together. You helped us find something that was sufficiently exciting. We had to go for it.
I love that you Roxanne and I, every client, I'm sure you got it too, got what I joke about calling the open mind lecture. So I really appreciate the fact that while you came in with some initial perceptions that were negative, you decided that you were going to learn and form your own opinion based on going through the process. I mean, we always want people to know that the only thing you're investing is just time. And our hope is that you can get clarity one way or the other and are not going to look back and wonder what I shoulda, coulda. So that's why we try to encourage people to follow the process, get information. And at the end of the day, as you pointed out, you did find something that would help you meet your goals.
Yeah, but either way, I guess I felt like the process itself was sufficiently broad and rigorous that I knew what was out there for me in franchising when we were done, whether we chose to go with it or not.
Exactly. And if you didn't decide to go, you could go a different path and have confidence that the franchise path wasn't the right way for
Instead of always just wondering.
Right.
Yeah. Which is what a lot of people do. They just wonder. And for whatever reason, don't want to engage in the process. There's no contract. There's no commitment. It is a commitment of your time. But I feel like it's also very educational. And I feel like a lot of my clients enjoy the research. I enjoyed it when I was going through the process and realized that there was a whole other world out there besides corporate.
The other thing is I learned a lot during the process that's been relevant to me in the first year. So, in all the different franchises we talked to, especially when we narrowed it down to, 6 or so to get in depth with different owners about, I started to hear themes across different businesses of how people were successful. Digital marketing came up frequently. And so we put a focus on that. The expectations of being able to go all in, for your first few years, don't plan to be doing a lot of other stuff because it's going to take, quite a bit of attention. And everybody that was successful seemed to tell that story. I think, and the expectation for a fair amount of volatility in results in the early years, all were things that we were sort of prepared for through that survey process.
Wonderful. So we've talked about you finding the right business and kind of your exploration. Tell us a little bit about your business and what it was that you found appealing about the opportunity.
So Next Day Access is a business that works with people that are elderly and disabled to modify their homes to maintain accessibility and safety. And so that can mean, putting grab bars in, but it 40% of our sales are wheelchair ramps of different kinds, threshold ramps, but a lot of times larger ramps too, to help people safely get in and out. We do a lot of stair lifts to help people access their upper floor. We put in vehicle lifts to help people carry their wheelchairs and scooters and things with them. We put in wheelchair lifts that will in some cases help people get up steps that are relatively high, but in some cases act as kind of elevators. And now we even do elevators sometimes.
Oh.
So
I'm sure you looked at several businesses. Tell us kind of how you ended up on this path. What was it that led you this direction?
Well, cleaning up crime scenes sounded good at first, but as I actually talked to people who were doing it, I decided, I can't really picture myself doing that.
You wanted something really, I can't remember exactly in my notes, but he wanted something unique and meaningful. So anyway, yeah.
I was looking for something that was, I don't know. Maybe offensive isn't the right word, but something that was like, not everybody would be willing to do it, and therefore it would have good margins.
Yeah. Well, that's what my husband always says. To be in business doing something nobody else wants to do. That's how you make money. Yeah.
And the margins are good in that business, by the way.
Yeah, I know they are. And they deserve every penny. But I wasn't up for it. But this was good. I mean, this was getting your hands dirty, going in, installing things, but doing it for people who really need it. And it's part of what we loved about it is that we're working with people who, are stuck at home, often, forgotten, a little bit lonely, and they really could be doing a lot more with their lives if they just had some of these things in place. And so that's what we help people with. The shame is always when we get called out after somebody's fallen or been hurt or at the very end of their life having dealt with this for a long time. We love it when people call us out before all those things start to happen and help us, get in front of it for them so they keep staying active.
So with that said, like, how are you finding your business? How are people finding you to call you to come out and maybe prepare for what might happen versus coming out after they've already had an issue? Who do you partner with for your referrals? And you mentioned digital marketing and things like that.
Yeah. So we invest. Our strategy going in for the first year was to really limit our overhead. So we didn't sign any commercial leases. We use self-storage spaces where we can. We keep all of our expenses really low, except those that are market facing. And so we invest disproportionately in our marketing, particularly our digital marketing and our web presence. And so we've gotten a lot of leads from that. And, as we've had more and more customers that were happy with us and left reviews and things like that, we've gotten more and more referrals from people who've worked with us before. And now increasingly we're looking to bring in more institutional referrals. So we get rehab centers that send us people, hospitals that send us people. We work with a number of nonprofits too, like the Neuro Assistance Foundation. We're sponsors for them. And we also sponsor Spina Bifida and Power to Move. And all three of them have helped with referrals.
Talking about referrals and marketing, I know one of the big struggles for a lot of businesses is that digital marketing, and people tend to not want to spend, and you are spending. Mm-hmm. You've doubled down on it. So for a potential business owner that has never had to do that before, I know you have somebody local that works in your office daily. How did you find this person, and how did you know that they were going to be able to market for you effectively? Because I think that's a big challenge for a lot of people is they'll hire someone and then it's not effective. So how were you able to do that, and how did you know if it would be effective or not?
Well, initially I hired somebody to answer the phones, mm-hmm. And that was kind of a call center person. And, because we're a new business, the phone basically didn't ring most of the time. So they really didn't have much to do. And so after we decided that wasn't a good investment, we then decided what we need is somebody who can focus on digital marketing. And if the phone rings, they can answer it and do some inside sales and develop our whole sales and marketing capability. And when we positioned the role that way, we found all kinds of interesting people were interested in it. There's a lot of people who have younger people who are coming out of school with experience in digital marketing and not even coming out of school, but with experience in digital marketing in different businesses that are really quite gifted and excited about it and really want to demonstrate how they can grow a business with that capability. And that was basically what the interviews were all about, was how would you grow a business like ours? Give me some examples of when you've done that for other businesses. And I was there were three people I really wanted to hire. It was a bummer I could only hire one.
Wow.
And they've been fantastic.
That's wonderful. That's really great to hear, because it is hard for people to bite that bullet and make that investment up front. But I'm really happy to hear that it's paid off for you.
And you got to stay on top of it. To put it in perspective, we spent $10,000 last year on advertising, digital marketing for stair lifts. Mm-hmm. And if we look back, we sold one stair lift from that.
Okay.
We spent whereas this person developed a digital marketing program for pool lifts. We spent about $700 and we sold $110,000 worth of pool lifts. Wow. So if you do it right, the returns are terrific. But you got to pay attention. You got to really research it and watch every step of the funnel.
Did you collaborate with other franchisees on some of those ideas? Is that how you figured some of that out? You just did it on your own?
No, we did. He does a lot of it, researching, from watching different YouTube videos and things like that, mm-hmm. And talking with Google and always trying to figure out what the latest thing is. And that's my sense of digital marketing today, is that it's a moving goalpost, and you've got to be always trying to figure out what sort of the latest trends are, how the algorithms are changing, and staying on top of it.
I don't think you can ever get complacent when it comes to digital marketing, because it's just changing all the time.
No.
So,
and because my background, which included both consulting and strategy, I'm used to bringing a lot of analytics to business. And with a small business, it's not as relevant, but certainly with digital marketing, it's relevant. And so we're always tracking the business and analyzing it in different ways. And you're constantly learning about where to shift focus and where to shift investment. And the rate at which, I'd like to be spending more on marketing than I am right now if I was confident I could get the higher returns. And so we're trying to optimize each component of the marketing so we can spend more on it.
Well, all that data that you're gathering and all the metrics is just completely, advantageous. So for you to figure out where to invest more and how to do better.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
really,
it's been fun.
Good.
So let's switch channels a little bit. One of the things that came up in our prep call is how much you're enjoying working with Palat and your family. Your children are involved as well. So kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier before we started recording, I think a lot of kids have seen the sacrifices their children or their parents have made for their careers, like traveling a lot or being gone a lot or being absent a lot. And I think a lot of those children don't want that same lifestyle for themselves. So now you're teaching them a completely different lifestyle. And I think the other thing that you're doing is you're making them realize that they have choices in life. There's a lot of paths for them, not just one. So talk a little bit about enjoying your time together and what you're doing together and how you get the kids involved.
Well, so Palat and I, pretty much every weekend, we have a couple of calls to do and maybe an install or two. We'll do it ourselves. I don't know. Have you enjoyed those?
Yeah, I enjoy to go out like a sales call with him and talk with people and things like that. And then sometimes we install things together. It's like most of the time I give him hand, like he used me to take things, something like that. And I hope as much as I can. But I enjoy we drive sometimes far, like an hour drive and things like that. And then we just talk we don't have time to talk at home. He come home a little bit late and he seemed tired. I just don't want to talk with him, but I pick up the kids and I come home and I'm tired too. But weekend we spend time together is mean a lot.
In the car, you get a lot.
Yeah, in the car,
a lot of windshield time to talk.
Yeah, we talk
And he was traveling for work before, and so now you have him home every night for dinner, right? Most nights.
We not really eat dinner together. But now we start to do
But I am home every night.
we start to do family dinner every weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we can talk with the kids because now it's time to talk what you do as a school and thing. They talk.
My kids would talk so much more at a restaurant for whatever reason at dinner than at home.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but yeah.
They not talk if I ask them in the car, what you do today and thing. No, they not talk. But when we sit in the table and have that day, they talk. Yeah.
I used to do story time with my son. If I asked him questions, he wouldn't answer either.
No,
so I
too.
would say we turned it into story time. So I wanted one story from the day, and he always could come up with a story. So how are the kids involved?
Oh, well, they help with the installations. They help with moving things. But mostly they're help, and sometimes they help on sales calls, whatever we've got. But they have strong backs, so we let them lift and carry things.
So you have a daughter and a son.
Yes. They're
14 and 16.
Exactly.
And you also take your daughter's boyfriend along too, right?
We have done that, yes, and but they're good guys and they work real hard too.
Are they excited to go?
No, they're never excited to go, but they always come back in a better mood than when they left. So they must enjoy it. I think it's good for them.
Well, plus I think
they feel like they've accomplished something.
Good.
Well, I think that they're seeing that you're helping people too. Like they get to meet your customers, and that probably opens their eyes a little bit on the kind of work that you're doing.
Yeah, the people that we help are primarily trying to stay in their homes. They're often elderly, though sometimes it's people with disabilities. But you go into the houses and they're always just filled with photos of the kids and the families and everybody at all these different stages. And we install a lot of stair lifts, and above us on every stairway is pictures of the kids at different ages growing up. And I was looking at one yesterday. It's a couple of toddlers that are probably in college now or graduated with their own kids. And so you they want to relate to people with families, and when we come and call on our customers, I think they appreciate that we're there together. You know, and Palat especially really connects with them well as they talk about their kids and families and raising kids. We're a good team when it comes to making the connections and selling.
That's awesome. You said something in our prep call. You said corporate is conceptual, even if you enjoy it. This is personal. And then you told the story of the blind man that you helped.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I guess I would just say after 25 years in some pretty big global corps, you know, they're giant institutions. They're business institutions, but they're more institutions than they are businesses, it seems sometimes. And so you're really dealing with a lot of conceptual aspects of how this giant machine operates. And you're pretty far away from seeing the value it creates for individual consumers. In the case of, you know, with a small business like this, it's all about the business and the value it creates for its customers. And so the example I was telling you was we had just installed a ramp for an elderly couple, and the husband was blind, and he couldn't get out his front stoop, and so we put a small platform and ramp in place with rails on it, and with that he could carefully go out and know that he always had something to hold on to, and he was safe, and he could get out of his house now. We frequently have people tell us that once we put the ramp in place, now that they can go see their doctor. Wow. You know, really critical things that they've limited their lives on, and now we've kind of opened that back up for them. We had a woman with MS. She had built a swimming pool with tiny little 2-inch steps so she could get in and out of the pool, but it's a progressive disease, and she's now at the point where that wouldn't work anymore. And so we put in a pool lift for her. And now she goes in, you know, 3, 4, 5 times a week.
Wow.
And can enjoy it again. And she's so happy, and she calls us all the time. So it's that kind of business, and it feels good to be meeting that need. It's part of what I was looking for, was a significant need in the marketplace that wasn't being really fulfilled and that was growing. And it's definitely true.
Well, and speaking of growth, you've grown your business too, right? You purchased in the beginning quite a large territory. And then I think on your 1-year anniversary, you bought another big chunk of the market, right? Yeah,
it wasn't quite a year. So we bought, there were 5 territories, I think, in the area, and we bought 2 to begin with, which is essentially Dallas County. And then as we started growing, and we're about 6 months into our operations, the franchise changed hands. And the company that bought it seemed keen to sell more territories. And we thought, well, maybe we got to double down now. And so we bought the other 2 available territories. And so now we operate in Dallas and Fort Worth. So it's a little more driving, but once we get to full scale, we'll have offices in both places. And there's a lot of need everywhere here. And I think a business like ours really works well serving most of the metropolitan area.
Yeah. I think you said you're getting ready to hire another full-time technician. You have one now, right? That works with you.
Yeah. So our first year, we did $500,000 in our first year, and we're now running at a $1 million run rate in our monthly sales for the last 4 months. So our, you know, we're right at the cusp of being able to add additional vehicles and people. And so my goal for year 2 is, as we move into the new year, to add that capacity, and if we can get through that kind of next level expansion, and add a salesperson that'll be full time, and keep scaling.
Well, I love the way that it can scale, and you know, as the need arises, then you can add additional people versus potentially having a brick and mortar and having to have X amount of employees and then kind of waiting for the clients to come in. I think that's hard for some people to grasp, the way that a business like yours scales in comparison to how others would scale that actually have a location. So.
And that's the kind of financial model we were looking for.
Yeah.
We didn't want something that had like really, deep trough and then a hockey stick. Which meant a build out. We wanted something that would be more like a field sales or field service business, where we can add route capacity and service capacity as we grow. What it means, though, is that we're less efficient. So we're covering this large territory, and we get a lot of windshield time right now.
Yeah.
But as we add more, that'll go down. The efficiencies will improve. And so, really our growth in the beginning has been by trying to take on bigger and bigger projects. So like we're about to install essentially an elevator at a hotel next week.
Wow.
It'll be our second largest project. We did commercial ramps for the Texas State Fair a couple months ago, or I guess a month ago. And, that was our biggest sale ever. It took us 11 months to close it.
Wow.
But it was fantastic. And so what we're learning to do is to move into bigger and bigger projects. And the nice thing about growing that way is that you don't have to add a lot of vans and people to do it. You just have to be able to take on more complicated projects.
And those bigger projects have bigger margins, so it's more bang for your buck, right?
Yes, for sure.
And you can ease into that and kind of start off as you did. And then as you get more experience and more referrals and then evolve into that. So I'm sure you have learned a lot throughout your first, year and a half in business?
Yeah,
so
about
far?
14 months.
14 months. Okay. So if someone's listening to this podcast today and would like to maybe get a tip or a piece of advice from you as they begin this potential entrepreneurial journey, what's some advice you might share with a prospective business owner or franchisee?
I guess I would say, first of all, find something with lots of growth potential that you're really committed to going all in with, and that will fit with your lifestyle, or at least the lifestyle you want. And then I would say make sure you're well capitalized, because whatever my estimates told me I needed, I ultimately needed twice that. So I'm glad I had twice that set aside for this. And plan for the first few years to be investment years. If you think you're going to take money out of it right from the beginning, it's going to be hard to scale it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. So if somebody has a need for your services at Next Day Access, how would they reach you? How would they get a hold of you?
So we've got a website. We've got two websites, one for Next Day Access Central Dallas or Dallas Central, and one for Fort Worth. So you can Google either one of those. Or you can call us at 214-257-8291. And we'd be happy, to just discuss whatever challenges you guys are facing around accessibility or concerns with what your parents might be facing. And we come out and give free evaluations and walkthroughs and suggestions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know that you are keeping busy with this growth, and we are very grateful for your time today. My name again is Sarah Wasco, and my colleague Roxanne Rapske. She's Rapske on her last name. I am Sarah without an H. Roxanne and I are very active on LinkedIn, so please follow us there. You can hear other podcasts wherever you get your podcast on whatever platform you enjoy. And please feel free to follow our YouTube channel at FranNet of Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great day.
Bye.